Everyone, my name is Tara Snapper, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I've been doing for the last 13 weeks. I've been working with Michigan Medicine's annual giving team, working on a recommendation, and I'll get right into it. So, this is the agenda. I'm going to do a little introduction about myself, talk about my plan of action and goals, the benchmarking process that we did, the recommendations that I gave, or some of them briefly, and then what I learned, and then kind of finishing us off. So about me, I'm an econ and international studies major. I worked at a startup last summer and also a private equity firm. I'm involved in Hillel, a business fraternity on campus, and also a social impact business club, which works on consulting with nonprofits. I'm really passionate about economic development. I hopefully hope to pursue the Peace Corps after college, or I'm thinking about it. And I really like yoga, traveling, making candles, check out my little business, Snappy's Crafts, and hiking. So to start off, the plan of action and goals, we really wanted to expand our fundraising efforts. So make sure that we are contacting the right people and enough of them so we can bring in the most money from our past patients. We wanted to improve relationships with donors, so make sure we're not nagging them too many times about reaching out, but also making sure that we are being as persistent as possible. And then lastly, evaluate the efficiency of our annual giving program. So mostly that came from looking at our own data and then comparing and benchmarking with other institutions. To get into more specifics, these are our goals. We wanted to evaluate our own practices, which I'm not going to get into detailed today, but if you want to know more, let me know. Determine success based off of different successes of our own donor profiles and others. Determine successes that people have had that brought greater donations in, and then benchmark that with other institutions as well. So that gets into that survey. And in terms of evaluating our open practices, I spent a lot of my time looking at data for our ROI, the age of our donor, how much they're inclined to donate, all this type of data, and looking at the trends and seeing what differed. And I'll get into at the end kind of that analysis briefly because we don't have that much time today. But that was a really bulk of my project in addition to the benchmarking. So benchmarking, this is just a brief list of all those institutions that we talked to and the questions that we asked. We asked 15 questions, really short 5-minute survey, asking anything from what's your typical ROI to who do you reach out to. These are our recommendations that we had. So first off was we need to reach out to non-donors more than twice. Our institution personally only reaches out to our donors twice. However, you have that list below, including University of Rochester and Duke, reaching out more than 5 times. And although we couldn't really measure ROI because in our survey, everyone answered that they have less than 100% return of revenue, we instead noticed that their response rate was above 1%, which most of the institutions, or by the vast majority, received only between 0.5 and 1%. So that's something that we should think about. Okay, we're not really nagging our donors if we reach out 5 times, but it's really actually necessary to catch their eye. Furthermore, it's important that we use both mail and email to contact our donors. So although that this might be a little bit self-explanatory and might seem easy, there were several institutions that used both, and they reached out quarterly and they made sure that their mail and email looked different. And this is really important because, first of all, email is free, so why not do it? And mail and email together can potentially bode successes, which it did, because look who lands on that list again. You have Duke. We also should implement digital fundraising and recurring gifts. So specifically in terms of recurring gifts and digital fundraising specifically, actually, UT Southwestern says, we geofence the entire university campus for 2.5 weeks, so push ads to anyone, including patients in that area. Do informal crowdfunding generated by the community, hoping to officially in FY21. So although you also have institutions like Duke, they participate in social media advertising. This was really the one institution that really showed geofencing, which is kind of what they described. You enter an area and then you get an ad. So that's something that we can play with. We're not behind. I think 10 out of 12 of the institutions had never tried it, but why not get ahead? So lastly, for these kind of specific ones from the benchmarking efforts, we have a nurse's day. That's awesome. We can do more. We can have a doctor's day. Those are all the institutions that have done it. However, what's important, which I thought was really interesting, was UNC has tried it. However, they were not successful. So we need to make sure that we replicate our nurses day, which was so successful, and figure out how we can implement that in a doctor's day. So kind of getting into a conclusion. So these are the recommendations. I'm not going to repeat the first four, but the last two. So age is a big one for recommendation 5. So we found that our average age was about 75 for all 4 years from fiscal year 16 to 18, 20. So we can maybe stay at a higher age bracket. Lastly, asking those ask ladders, having a higher anchor. So maybe something at 500 instead of 100 could potentially bring in a lot more revenue. So kind of getting into what I learned, which obviously is really exciting for myself. So I really got to learn Excel in an amazing way using mail merges, filters, pivot tables, all this stuff that I had never used before that now is ingrained in my mind because I've done it so often. In addition, I use business objects to get all the data and also Tableau to find more data. So if I ever need to go into those systems again and, okay, how do I kind of finesse my way into the system? Obviously, it's different per institution, but I have experience with that. And lastly, just some soft skills. I think interpersonal skills are really important. And I had to reach out to these institutions and have a really formal email. And I had to give every other week update to my team. And presenting to 10 people this information is important to make sure it's synthesized. And finally, giving this presentation and writing a final report and making sure that me as an intern, you can take me seriously. So I hope this was interesting for you. And if you guys have any questions, I would love to, you can reach out to me. My email is tsnapper@umich.edu. Thank you.